bringing you the news and information you need from the people making a difference. This is Comcast Newsmakers.
Well, I'm glad he could join us. Jim Wunderman is with us right now. He's president and CEO of the Bay Council, and he had an idea that he wrote to the San Francisco Chronicle about that people had a big reaction about a constitutional convention for the state of California. Jim, you took it upon yourself to want to change the Constitution of California. Is that the goal?
Well, people up and down the state from all walks of life are very frustrated with what's happening in their state government, and they understand, because we've all seen the what's happened in the budget. It's record amounts of time taken on almost an annual basis now to get just a budget for the state. But when you look at the education system, which has fallen from best in class to virtually the worst, from the prison system, which is in the hands of a federal judge, our water system on the verge of collapse, and the state government can't seem to come to grips with big problems. California can't compete if we're in a situation where our government can't perform. So we think major reform is needed.
Well, one of the things in education that bothers me is the fact the funding of education in the state, I think, is like 47th in the nation. California, the leading state in so many different ways. That has got to change.
We've had reports that were done at the behest of the governor and the legislative leaders by Stanford and Berkeley that show that what needs to be done, and it's a combination of financial support and major reforms. We're not delivering the kind of educational system and approach that works in the 21st century. That combination would succeed, and yet there's so much resistance to change that we end up with the status quo, and the status quo is not good enough for California.
Okay, California and the United States of America seem to be expanding, and more people, more problems all the time. There doesn't seem to be any way to pull it all back together. I'm looking at the federal government, for example, and the California government. What do you suggest? This convention would do what?
Well, the Constitutional Convention for California would bring citizens together from around the state as delegates to consider how California runs its government, how other states perform. Some of them perform much, much better, so you can import best practices here, and would recommend to the voters for approval a series of major reforms in the areas of our budget, fiscal reform, how local districts, cities, counties, school districts get funded, how we elect people, make sure that we're getting a legislature that isn't at odds with each other and isn't collegial, but is actually working together to solve pretty significant challenges. And so those kind of changes are what's needed now, and it's possible to do this. I think we need to be positive and say, okay, we're in a new era and we have new kinds of challenges. Let's have a government that can address those things. We represent the business community, and I can tell you businesses don't want to expand in a place where the government can't have its act together. And if businesses won't expand, you're going to see a decline in the economy, decline in the services people need, and so forth. So it all comes back to having a state government that's able to compete, to perform, and to provide, and we think we need to really address that now.
Okay, the article that you wrote, the op-ed piece you wrote for the Chronicle, what kind of reaction did you get when from that?
Yeah, we the writing about the need for a constitutional convention, I think we received more response to that than anything we've ever said, and frankly it's taken off like a rocket, and leaders from around the state and regular folks and organizations, they want to know how they can support this, how they can get involved. I think the frustration is one thing we all share at this point, and let's not waste a crisis. Let's do something with this. Our political systems in a tough time, our economy is, as everyone understands, is a very difficult time. Let's use this moment to look, to work together to solve some of these big problems. So for the next era, we can tell our kids, we did the things that were necessary to make sure that their future was preserved and supported.
Jim, always good to see you.
It's great to be here.
Jim Wunderman's been our guest. He's president and CEO of Bay Council, talking about a constitutional convention. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks.